The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Geek Skeezers and Googlization Show. I am your host, Ira Wolf. I'm here with my co-host, Keith Campagna. Our sponsors, JobVite and Success Performance Solutions. And like every week, we're going to be talking with an HR and business thought leader about living and working in a world where the wired, the tired, and technology converge. We have another great show coming up, Keith. I can't tell you how excited I am to interview our guest today, Mike Haberman. You've not met him. You just met him actually about 2 minutes ago, but not officially. He has a company, Omega HR Solutions. And I was fortunate enough to meet Mike about 20 years ago through a mutual friend when I did an event in Atlanta. We've kept in touch for all these years. I watched them become a highly respected leader in the HR space, especially within SHRM. And we met up a couple weeks ago after we hadn't seen each other in a number of years. We were both at SHRM annual conference in Vegas. He agreed to be on the show, and we're going to be talking about the conference. He's got a great perspective on trends he's noticed, and we're going to pick his brain about the future of work. But before we get there, let's talk about what's going on in our world of Googlization. What's going on, Keith?
Hey, guys. Yeah, now I'm excited to see Mike or have him on the show. It's just fantastic when we have progressive thought leaders that really have a good understanding on not necessarily what needs to happen, but what needs to happen in the future as well. For me, on my side, I'm thrilled to share with you guys that HROI, the software that I'm working to produce with the company called the ROI Shop out of Atlanta, is almost complete. And one of the common themes that we've talked about here on the show is how HR teams really struggle, HR leaders struggle with the concept of building a business case and having really effective return on investment offerings to put in front of their CFO. And HROI is set to take on that challenge and make it easy for them to do so. So I've been keeping busy doing that. And I don't know, you weren't doing much traveling over the holiday, were you? Leave it up to you to not travel during the holidays.
Yeah, well, just a couple family things, back and forth. Actually attended a couple concerts, and so local travel, in and out, but not on the speaking circuit. So the most of the conferences are kind of ended until the end of August, beginning of September. Then that ramps up again, if I can talk. I obviously lost my ability to talk since there's no conferences. But there's, I'm going to be at the Garden State Conference in Atlanta, in Atlantic City. Going to be at the big one is going to be HR Southwest. Was invited back to speak at Fort Worth. That's I think the third or fourth biggest SHRM conference that there is, and I'm doing we'll be talking more about that. I'm doing the pre-conference, which is a first, doing a full day conference on recruitment marketing. And a couple other events, Lehigh Valley, which I told you about. Lehigh Valley is doing the Workforce 2030, which should be fun. That's the senior executives, September 18th, and a couple others that I can't recall off the top, but it'll ramp up. So this is my catch-up time over the next couple weeks. One of the other things just about the Geek Skeezers and Googlization show, you haven't even seen it yet, but working on a new website. Yeah. So we'll be talking a little bit easier to display, expanded, talking about sponsors, a lot of free resources we'll be putting up here. We've actually got I've quite a few books from a lot of the people who have spoken, and we're going to run some contests. So hopefully, I don't know by next week, but definitely by the end of the month, the new site will be up. So Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. So I'm excited about that.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm planning to do a webinar, just put that together and actually release the news this morning. So 2 weeks today, or 2 weeks Tuesday.
Nice.
I'm doing one about kind of a new assessment platform, a new upgraded. It's not a new assessment, but it's a new upgraded platform, and it's a lot of flexibility in it, and excited about doing that. So that's so it's still busy.
Still busy.
Never slows down in this age of Googlization. And then this morning, I just got I'm interviewed quite a few times, fortunately. And I know Mike's interviewed me several times for his blog, but there's a company called Clutch, and they released a very interesting survey about reskilling, retraining, learning and development, what's going on, what employers think employees want, what employees actually want. As no big surprise, there's a huge gap between those two. And how important retraining and reskilling and learning and development, and then that there's a lot of that out at SHRM. But how important that's going to be to not only recruit people, but to retain them, especially your top talent. So.
And surprise, surprise, that's what we usually wind up talking about, right? I know with LifeWork integration, I've been sitting in front of a lot of business leaders of all rank and file, and the message resonates. It's time, I like to think that more and more leaders are recognizing or becoming more aware of the talent market challenges that are present day and aren't going anywhere anytime soon. And so, yes, the retention is now becoming the other side of the recruitment coin.
Yeah, well, it's expensive, and one of the things I did mention, and they picked it up, the writer picked it up in the article, was that I still hear people say, well, we're not, if we invest in them too early, we're just training them for our competitors. And the problem is, if you don't offer training at all, it really is a catch-22. If you don't offer training early and often, then they leave. Right. Or they don't even want to come in the first place. So there's still this, and I'll be interested to hear Mike's perception on this. There's still this, I guess it's perception's the right word, that, people are only going to stay for 5 or 7 years and, or even maybe even 2 or 3 years. So we're not going to invest in them. And, frankly, the career paths are, if somebody comes, expectation should be, if they stay for 2 or 3 years and they were good employees, they had value, they may go to another company, learn something new, and then they might come back, or they go and they know other people that might be a better fit for your organization. Companies just haven't adapted to that, kind of that new world. And what loyalty mean? Loyalty just doesn't necessarily mean you've stayed 30 years in the same company.
Go ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of people that are 25 and 30-year career employees who aren't very loyal to their company. Just because they pick up a paycheck every 2 weeks doesn't necessarily mean they're loyal.
Absolutely. And I think it's becoming louder and louder in terms of the noise it's making. I see out in my own personal adventures. I can't wait to get Mike on because I want to hear what he's seeing in terms of the trend. Are people actually paying attention, or just for the sake of making dialogue or conversation, are we wrong? Is there something that's maybe we're looking at this the wrong way and companies shouldn't be paying attention to, they don't have to pay attention to the human capital that they have? Let's find out.
Yeah, absolutely. So good segue. Let's bring on Mike. Let me do a proper introduction to him. Michael Haberman, I know him as Mike, is Vice President, co-founder of Omega HR Solutions. It's a consulting and services company based in the Atlanta area, but I know they do work all around. They offer complete HR solutions, but Mike has gained a reputation as the go-to guy on HR compliance. Where most of you may know the name. I mentioned him earlier this morning to somebody, and they go, yeah, I get his blog. He does a lot of blogging. He was one of the first. He's the author of Human Resources blog at OmegaHRSolutions.com. It's been recognized quite a few times in the top 25 for HR blogs. He was a SHRM 19 blogger. So he got to meet and see and interview a lot of people. So we chatted before the event, and then he actually covered my session that was out at SHRM, Keeping the Human in HR. He's also on Human Resource Executive Magazine's blog. What else? One of the top 10 digital influencers. So quite a reputation there, Michael, that you've developed over the years. And as I said, really excited about having you get your perspective on SHRM 2020 and where HR is going. Mike, welcome to Geeks, Geezers, and Googleization.
Thank you, Ira, and Keith. I'm happy to be here. I was chomping at the bit to jump in on that conversation.
Oh, you could have done it.
And talk about the investment that people are putting into training and the fact that they don't want to do that because they anticipate that people are only going to be with them for a couple years. And why do I want to waste all that money on companies? I mean, for my company to then lose that employee and take that knowledge someplace else. And my response to that is, because I get that every once in a while with the consulting clients that I work with, and it's like, today people are so connected. There's so much reputation capital that's running around out there with Glassdoor and other kinds of websites like that in the recruitment process, do you really want to have a reputation with people that are looking for jobs that you don't train anybody because you're afraid that they're going to leave too soon? And it's like, that's not the reputation that you want to have. You want to have a reputation for taking somebody brand new and immediately giving them all kinds of training and making them better at what they do. You're not only going to be able to keep them and keep them excited, but that reputation is going to get out as they talk to other people, as they put things out on social media that's going to help you attract better candidates, people that are going to be interested in coming to work for you because of the fact that you pay more attention to them and their skill set. So it always frustrates me when I hear people say, we don't want to put this in here because these people are going to be gone in about 3 years. It's like, number one, don't you want them to be all trained in that 3 years that they're doing it? And number two, don't you want to have them talking about what a great company you are?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And by the way, just the survey, this article that came out, and I'll have it posted all around, so anybody who follows me on LinkedIn or Twitter, on the website, then I'll also post it when we get this up on the podcast. I'll post a link to it. But in the survey, which was from Clutch company, Clutch.co, is half of employees have not been offered any form of job retraining in the past year. And then 23% of the companies that do offer job development opportunities do it only for a few employees or none at all. Yeah. Again, it's pretty crazy. So go ahead.
Before we go any further, and I'm sorry to do this to you, but I do need to make a correction. My last name is pronounced Haberman. So.
Haberman.
All right.
Got it.
Haberman, right.
Your name won't be the first one I buy.
Oh yeah, no. Wait till he says Geeks, Geezers,
don't worry
and
about
Googleization.
Everybody does it. So, and I tell a story, and I probably shouldn't do this. Is the fact that if you saw the letters HA-HA as a laugh, how would you pronounce it? Ha-ha. Right. And I told somebody that, and forever after that, I was ha-ha-Haberman to him.
Yeah. or aha. Yeah. In my world, it's aha.
Hey, Mr. Haberman, I have a question for you. Before we move on, and I'm sure Ira's got a lot of good questions to ask, but what you just described, it certainly is on what I see all the time and what I'll say the thought leaders see every day with regards to the macro elements of HR. My curiosity with you is, how long ago did you start seeing people paying attention to the fact, because I'm sure, you gave the example of that consulting client that wasn't all into it, but I got to believe that there are people that do subscribe to the fact that the value that you have an employee is the time you have with them, and you have to maximize that time. Let's do it by developing them. Let's do it by training. I'm curious, how long have you seen this noise starting to echo in the hallway?
I've actually seen that for a while, but those were companies that all of us would have considered to be progressive companies. Over the average company, and you have to understand, in my consulting business, I deal primarily with small companies. In small companies, I have seen that for a while, where small companies take people and do some good training, but the majority of them do not. And in fact, as I was listening to Ira and his presentation at SHRM, and we're talking about artificial intelligence, I was thinking, there's still a lot of small companies out there that have no idea what AI even means, and the impact that it could have on their particular organization. And, I think we have a tendency to we get so encapsulated in our own worlds. I, as a blogger, me, as a tweeter, somebody that uses Twitter all the time, thinks that everybody uses it. I talk to so many people at the SHRM conference that are not connected on social media, that don't pay attention to that kind of stuff, that we have this tendency to think that everybody's paying attention and that everybody knows all this stuff and everybody's up on what AI can do. And Ira, given the size of the attendance in your presentation, which, by the way, was excellent, is an indication of how many people are still pretty uninformed about the technology out there that can improve them. So I think, we're making slow way, but, we still have a long way to go for the majority of companies that are starting to pay attention to artificial intelligence and Googleization and the various kinds of tools that they can use to improve their hiring process, to improve their training process. I'm getting ready to do a webinar later today on the onboarding process. Talk about some of that, but it is, still, so many people don't understand. They're still doing paper systems, so it's kind of frustrating.
Yep. Yeah. Now, you say small companies, Mike. What do you mean? How would you define a small company?
Small company is typically, in my realm, a company that has fewer than 100 employees, and in many cases may not even have a professional HR person. It's the office manager, the controller that's doing that. And obviously, they're trying to introduce technology into their part of the business world. But, as far as the HR world is concerned, now they're not doing that so much. So,
and when I was at Job
for all your listeners, Ira, that are going to be there at your presentation in Texas, I encourage them to go to that, because your presentation was good and very eye-opening, but at the same time very realistic. So pay attention to Ira Wolf.
How about it?
Hey, I appreciate that. Hey, so let's talk a little bit more about the SHRM conference. I mean, that was actually my first annual conference. I've attended a lot of regional and locals, but I have not done that. But you've got a much different perspective. How did you feel this one compared to maybe the first one you attended, or how has the SHRM annual evolved? As far as topics and offerings and what have you seen differently?
Well, my first annual conference was a long time ago in San Francisco, and actually happened to be in my hotel when an earthquake occurred. So it was.
Oh, okay.
But that was a long time ago. I've been doing the blogger squad duties since Atlanta, so that was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I forget exactly when it was. And even at that time, the introduction of social media into the entire conference was a brand new thing. We were teaching people how to get on Twitter. We still had introducers that were saying, please silence your phone. So we don't interrupt the speaker.
Now it's please take out your phone and talk about me, right?
Yeah, and now it's, here's the hashtag for, here, hashtag Ira Wolf or hashtag AI or whatever it is that we want you to tweet all this information out about. But I was surprised at this conference that there are still, despite all those efforts, there are still people that are, oh no, I don't use Twitter. I'm not on social media, and the only thing I use is Facebook for my friends. And it's like, I was telling this one woman, I said, you're going to be behind the curve. You already are behind the curve. Your employees are using Twitter. Your employees are using social media, and they're saying things about you and saying things about your company because you're not connected. You don't know what they're saying, and you're going to lose as a result of that. And she went, yeah. Mm-hmm. My guys are in the mining business. They don't do that kind of stuff. I said, go look sometime, and you'll be surprised what's out there. So, so it is. I would say that's probably the major change that I have seen in the conference. Obviously, in the past couple of years, there's been a change in SHRM leadership, so there is a new leadership direction that we're taking. And I like the tone that they set this year as far as some of the things, inclusion that they're trying to do. They're trying to get more, military or ex-military involved. We're trying to put an effort into getting more people that have criminal records back into the workforce. And one of the things that I had put up in a blog post was, our first speaker is a woman who is an older employee, and that's one of the things that they're trying to do. A woman who is, a successful business person, but she's also spent time in prison. So she may be able to produce for us a different perspective than what most of our keynoters have done in the past. And then I read a tweet from somebody that said, why is it that SHRM is having a speaker who is an ex-convict? And I'm thinking, lady, you just didn't get the message in this conference as far as that inclusion is concerned. So it was interesting. I like this year. Obviously it's large. It's a 20,000 person conference, which for a human resources conference is huge.
Right.
And it's not compared to some of the big software conferences. My wife goes to Dreamforce, which is Salesforce.com, and they have 120,000 people show up. But for 20,000 people to show up, a lot of them are newbies, a lot of them are small companies. So, having a session like yours and Ben Eubanks where you're talking about artificial intelligence, I hope a lot of those newbies were attending your conference because that's the kind of information they need to come and get.
Yeah, it was interesting because early morning, 7:15, room starts to fill up, wondering, and it was a big room. I was wondering if he was going to be there. And as you said, I was honored and humbled that many people showed up early, standing room only by the time we left. But there was a young guy. I'm not sure how young he was, but a gentleman that was first thing, sat right in the front. And he turned around and his English wasn't very good. And he pulled out his phone and he pointed and he said, "Are you going to be talking about artificial intelligence?" And I said, "Well, it's certainly part of the talk." He says, "What is it?" And I said, if you're here to learn what is artificial intelligence, then you probably need to go to the other session that he was pointing to. But he stuck around, and he had a load of questions, and I think part of the challenge was the English. But you were right. There was, fortunately, I think the message got across. I wasn't talking in depth. I was talking about the concept of emotional intelligence, or not emotion, all that as well, emotional intelligence, but artificial intelligence, and how it was going to impact it, and frankly, just to talk a little bit about the message. When I first started, keeping the human in HR was about how artificial intelligence and other technologies was removing the H from HR. But as we've, as one of my examples, and you probably remember that, Mike, we talked about it before too. One of the things that, came out was the ATS. It's been implemented, But we talk about ghosting. I mean, I this week there must have been 15 articles about how employers have to stop ghosting their candidates. Just kind of ignoring them. And it's, and again, so even without technology or even with little bits of technology, companies are, basically not treating people with the respect and dignity and transparency and authenticity that they need. We, as always, we just kind of blow through our time elements here. We're up against a break, so we're going to take a kind of little 2-minute break. We're going to hear from our sponsors. You're listening to Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Our guest today is Mike Haberman from Omega HR Solutions. We've been talking about SHRM talent, but when we come back, we're going to talk a lot more about the future of HR, where things are going. Mike's got a long history in that and really good perspective. I guess I said, we're going to take a quick break, 2 minutes. Stay tuned. You're going to hear from our sponsors, JobVite, Success Performance Solutions. We'll be right back.
Behind everything you're searching for is something you're actually looking for. When you search with the real Yellow Pages, you get more than a contractor. You get a whole new curb appeal. It's not just getting directions to a dry cleaner with YP.com. It's rescuing an old favorite from the back of the closet. And it's more than finding a locksmith with YP.com on your mobile. It's getting to sleep in your own bed. Whatever it might be, there are more ways to search and more ways to find exactly what you're looking for with the real Yellow Pages, YP.com, and YP.com on your mobile, only from AT&T.
What's up, everyone? This is Keith from the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show, powered by JobVite. JobVite knows career paths are made by people, not by open job requisitions. JobVite's platform ties recruitment marketing directly to applicant tracking and onboarding, creating continuous candidate engagement that effectively connects recruiters with qualified passive candidates. Used by over 50,000 recruiters placing over 1 million jobs, JobVite's platform impacts every company in every industry. Check us out at jobvite.com.
Listen carefully. Up to 9 out of 10 job candidates visiting your company career page leave before completing an application. You heard that right. 90% of candidates who want to apply for a job at your company don't. That's just plain crazy, especially in today's tight labor market. Candidate experience matters. Stop turning candidates away. Let Success Performance Solutions help. Call us at 800-803-4303 or register at successperformancesolutions.com/W4CY. Schedule a no-obligation consultation and get special access to insider tips to recruit faster and hire smarter.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show. I'm your host, Ira Wolf, here with my co-host, Keith Campagna. Our special guest today is Mike Haberman. Mike, before we jump back in, started this the last couple sessions that we've done, our last couple podcasts that we've done. What book are you reading? You might have picked up some or got some ideas out at SHRM. Is there anything that you're reading of note?
There are actually a couple of ones that I'm trying to get through. I'm actually trying to finish Ben Eubank's book on HR and artificial intelligence.
Oh yeah. I love that one. So
you referenced it a number of times.
That literally that transformed my talk. And Ben, just for all the listeners, Ben Eubanks is going to be on the show in August. Yep. So we'll be talking a lot about that. So yeah, great book. Sitting right here.
Yeah, and then I'm reading a book. I'm overdue on doing a review of it on HR, social interaction, social networks by John Hyman. Or no, not John Hyman. Now, I can't remember his name. Oh, terrible. It's sitting out on another table, so I can't reference it very quick. But that one. And to be honest with you, it's a great book. I'm having a difficult time getting through it because it is so loaded with information that I keep trying to have to go back and reread. So but I've actually have sort of taken a break from doing technical reading, and I've been doing a lot more pleasure reading, not fantasy, but fiction. And to be honest with you, really gotten into naval fiction. I don't know if you ever recall the movie Master and Commander, Far Side of the World. That movie got me started, and I read that entire 23-book series of based upon the adventures of those two characters. And so so I sort of took a break from that. But
well, I know some of the technical reading gets tough, and I got a stack of books. Here. I mean, Keith always knows what my desk looks like, and I got a ton of books, amongst all the other information that's here. But one of the things that's just crazy with it is, and you've heard me say this a lot of times, and it was the premise of my book, is that science fiction is and reality are converging, and so even when you're reading artificial intelligence in HR, which was Ben's book. It reads like fiction of some of the things that are happening, oftentimes. Yeah, for sure.
Well, so I had at the conference, I had somebody pay me a nice compliment. Jessica Miller-Merrill, who has a site called Workology. I've written blog posts for her for a number of years, and I've actually written my blog posts for 15 years. And I early on picked up the idea of talking about technology, and she said she back and reviewed all the things that I'd written for her about the future of work and the future of technology. She said, you're really one of the ones that was early in on talking about this. And unfortunately, I think I was probably too early because now everybody's doing it. And I think they ignored the fact that I was talking about it first. But it was, I go back to when we were talking about technology in HR changing the nature of the way HR people do their jobs. And that was even then back at the point of having a kiosk in your office where people could come and enroll with benefits plans. I said, having that kind of technology that now extends to artificial intelligence allows you, the HR person, can get away from a transaction kind of HR to going to an interaction kind of HR, where you can now focus on the human in human resources as opposed to focus on the technology or the paperwork or whatever. And AI is just the further step of those kiosks that we were setting up 20 years ago that allow you to focus on what's happening with the people as opposed to paying attention to what's happening with the paperwork. Paperwork is still important, but that is not, in reality, in HR, that is not that shouldn't be the focus of your job. That should be a tool that you use to allow you to focus on the people that are in your company. And that, to me, that just goes into the whole concept of what we're trying to do now and make HR more personalized. And we're paying attention to what employees need. It goes to your onboarding. It goes to, and that technology helps you get a handle on all of that.
Hey, Eric. Can I jump in real quick here? Because this is something that's on my mind. Mike, you've been around for a good while. You've seen it all. You've heard it all, and you've probably helped a lot of it. What is it about those small business organizations, and in my mind, I'll take it anywhere between 100 to less than 1,000 employees for now. What is it that's keeping them from being able to take that first step forward? Because like you mentioned earlier, there are still today HR leaders, quote unquote leaders, that don't have a Twitter account, that don't use social media to promote their employee brand. And Ira and I always joke about this in terms of, we talk about artificial intelligence, but that's probably as far removed from most HR departments as any one technology could be. So I'm curious, from your perspective, where do you see companies taking that first step? What do they need to do to be able to get to what we consider the minimum?
Well, the profession is moving in that direction. And the reason we were that way as a profession to begin with is that none of us were ever trained in human resources. I got into human resources not through even a business class, I was studying monkeys and chimpanzees and couldn't make a living out of that. So I ended up going to work for a recruiting firm and then got into an HR department. I was never trained in HR, and a lot of people of that. You to older HR professionals, most of us do what we call fall into the position. And so there are a lot of people out there that are in those positions that came up through the ranks, were clerical, recruiting, supervisors who didn't want to be out on the floor anymore, those kinds of things. And we didn't have that HR education. Now that started to change. There are a lot of degrees that are being earned every year from very, very good HR departments, but those people end up getting snapped up by larger companies, and the small companies aren't hiring the people with that kind of background, or they do hire them expecting them to transform their little HR department, and that person becomes so overworked, so overwhelmed by the old paperwork systems that it's very, very hard for them to progress with that. And, for a company that has 150 employees, 200 employees, you may have an administrative assistant, and for you to now try to talking to your management that you want to have a software system that allows you to connect with an employee through artificial intelligence, they start seeing dollar signs that go along with that. And one of the things you were talking about, Keith, is HROI. Too many smaller business HR people don't really know how to make that business case. Yeah. So it's just part of that education. Now, SHRM and other certification organizations are trying to work very hard on telling us HR people that we need to understand the business. We need to understand how to do that business case. I teach certification classes annually, and that's one of the things that we talked about. A lot of people don't understand how to do that business case. So I think we're running behind the curve in those small companies as far as catching up. There is a lot going on as far as artificial intelligence in larger companies, but the people that are coming out of schools that have that kind of knowledge, that have that kind of data savvy, are going to bigger companies and not to the small companies.
Yeah. I mean, just for the record, and I think important for all the listeners here, I mean, is artificial intelligence that we're talking about is really pretty basic. I mean, we're not talking about general artificial intelligence, but analyzing the data and thinking like, equal to a human being yet. I mean, that doesn't even exist. I mean, it will happen shortly. But we're pretty much, I mean, most of the companies that were even exhibiting, and most of the people who were speaking, are really talking about advanced analytics. I mean, to some degree. I mean, it's really, rather than, you have all this data and people spend hours and hours and weeks probably putting together a spreadsheet. Well, obviously the data is collected and the technology allows you to access that data quickly, and then, apply a number of filters, very easily to find out what are the trends, what did we miss, and what can we forecast. But, as far as doing it automatically, and as far as doing it at that high level, that what people envision as artificial intelligence doesn't exist. And HR is frankly not ready for it. So, right. Really, we're just talking about better use of data. But let me go back to something you said. I thought, when just a few minutes ago, we were talking about the utilization of social media. And you were surprised how many people weren't using social. They might have a LinkedIn profile, but they don't use it. They stay away from Twitter. And frankly, whether you're on Twitter or not, I guess is here nor there. But it still shocks the crap out of me how many people don't have a LinkedIn profile or it's not updated, especially in this day and age. But I don't know if you've been following the forum for SHRM at all. But there was apparently a whole backlash because they did not provide paper agendas.
Right.
this year. That there wasn't printed, so people went to the bag and it wasn't there. So, but thinking about this, I mean, there were I think close to 22,000 people there.
But there was a mobile app, though.
Well, there was a mobile app, but that's what I was saying. So there was a mobile app, which meant you had to have a smartphone. Okay, that number one requirement. You had to have a smartphone. You had to be somewhat savvy so you have to be tech savvy enough at least to have a smartphone. And a lot of people didn't. There was a lot of people that had flip phones or no phone, where they don't turn it on, or they're really uncomfortable using it. Like they check their email and maybe send a text, but that's about all they use it for. So there were people struggling to get the app on. There were people. Now, I will say that the user experience, and I'm pretty sensitive to that these days, the user experience from the app was just okay. It took me, and I won't give myself a 10 on technology savvy, but I'm certainly better than average. And I had a tough time finding where things were. If I found it, how did I get there? How do I get back to it? But can you imagine? I mean, it's for a profession that is not known as very tech savvy. The only way that they can find out where the courses were, what rooms they were in, where the maps were, how do I get there, was using an app on a smartphone. And I'd be interested to see how many people, one, don't have smartphones, two, aren't very savvy using them.
Oh yeah, it's unfortunately too many, and I think that's part of that was that education that I was talking about. It is, and people who just don't want to use it. It's not just a matter of they don't have it, or they just don't want to. And I think part of that is, and I don't get in a political discussion of all the crap that's going on as far as the use of technology running around the world. And people who are savvy at it end up quite often not working for those small companies. That data analytics that you were talking about. There are very few people in HR that talk about their capabilities of handling data analytics if they're applying to a small company. I'll give you an example. I had one of my students at the end of the spring to look at people's resumes if they would like some feedback to it. And from one student, I got a resume, and up the top, they've got this box of technical skills. And the technical skills, now this is an older person, been in HR for a while, though. His technical skills are MS Word, being able to do spreadsheets, and and other things like that, as far as opposed to data analytics capability, of experience with using artificial intelligence. He didn't even mention any software packages that he has any experience with, and I told him that those are all those skills that you were talking about are the assumed. You need to be talking about the updated skills that you have. Right. And too many people are still in that position.
Well, and it's kind of, I was writing an article, and it had like 1 million subjects in it. So I think I have like 3 articles, and I'm trying to flesh it out. But in there, it reminded me when I was writing about something in the conference. It reminded me on one of the shuttle rides back, we were talking, and somebody said, "Didn't you give a presentation this morning?" And I said, "Yeah." And somebody else asked what it was about, and we talked about AI. So there were 2 immediate responses by 2 of the attendees. One of them said, "I'm not very good at math. That's why I went into HR."
Yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking that earlier.
Yeah. So that still exists. The other one says, I don't get this artificial intelligence. It's pretty scary. And my response was, yeah, it is. And you should be scared of it, but you can't avoid it. But her response to that was, but I don't have to worry about it because my employer is so backwards that they'll never use it.
There you have it.
And I wanted to say is, how long will your employer be around? And, because she said, I'll be here for the rest of my career. And it's like, I had a guess, maybe she was late 40s, early 50s, maybe early 50s. If she's thinking she's going to be around for 10 years and their company doesn't believe in any technology, I don't know where they're going to. I don't know what industry she was in, but how competitive they're going to be. But I don't know where they're going to find people.
Yeah.
But not using social or technology.
But anyways, to get back to your question of why is this happening, I think there's just a big gap in the educational process that today we're turning out a lot of people with HR degrees and we're teaching them analytical skills, but there's such a demand for those people that they're getting snapped up by big companies. And so the small and mid-sized companies, number one, probably don't have an opportunity to look at those candidates, or those candidates were not quite great in those subjects, and so they're not talking about the fact that they have that skill base. So it's I think we still have a way to go. I think people are starting to pay attention to what the initials AI mean, and but there's still a long way. I think that's one of the problems. I was writing about it 10 years ago, and at that time I was getting practically no response to it. I was talking about the work of various futurists who were talking about it, and not the foundation that you're seeing now. But you go to the SHRM conference, and you can go talk to a lot of the big software companies that have systems for human resources, and they're all talking about their analytics and AI capabilities. But those are huge systems that are enterprise kinds of level, and small companies aren't going to look at that. So,
okay. Hey, so Mike, we're about 4 minutes from wrapping this thing up. Okay. So I got a question, and then kind of let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, how they can read your blogs. What you've been doing this for a long time. You said this is you didn't give me a number, but you've attended many of these sessions. You've been in the HR space. Was there anything that you left this conference feeling really excited about? That sort of sums it up. Right?
No, I would say probably not from a subject matter, not so much.
Or a trend, or just a kind of an emotion, something.
Well, on the emotion part of it, I came away with that feeling that there are a lot of young people in the profession who are excited about being in the profession, and that was actually refreshing and encouraging to see.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was. I would say a couple people, maybe mid-career, older career, came up to me, afterwards. But I would. There was like 6 or 7 students, interns, young people that flooded me right afterwards, and hey, I want to keep in touch. How can I do that? Can I call you? And that's exciting. I mean, it's exciting one to know somebody was listening, but even more so is to see their enthusiasm for this. It's like, hey, here's somebody who got it, and this is why we came to the profession, and we're really excited about moving it forward. So, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, how can people read about you, get in touch with you, contact you?
The primary way is my website, which is OmegaHRSolutions.com. The front page of that is my blog. I haven't been writing on it here recently because of the conference, and I was away from that, and then I took a little bit of vacation. But I'm getting ready to start doing all my posts about my impressions of the conference and reliving some of that. So there will be more reading material up there. But even without that, you can go back and take a look at the last 15 years worth of stuff that I've written. And
then you'll find a half a dozen or so with that you and I have talked, and all the way back from the Perfect Labor Storm. I think that was the first time.
Yeah.
We chatted, and then about geeks. Well, the original Geeks, Skeezes, and Googlization, the book, which was 10 or 11 years ago, and now recruiting in the age of Googlization and keeping the human in HR and all those things.
You've always been an interesting topic to write about because. Number one, you and I are relatively the same age, and we're two geezers that appear to get it. So I'm glad that we have a common interest there. I am on Twitter. I am on just my name, Mike Haberman. At Mike Haberman is my Twitter handle. I've been there for a long time too. I've got 30,000 tweets that you can go, take a look at if you want. Yes. I am on LinkedIn and have been there for a while as well, at 2,500 contacts plus. So it is, I've been around in the social media for a while, and
well, we'll make sure that we'll have all those things listed in the podcast when we got it, and then the new website that'll be coming up, we'll have that listed, and any additional resources you want to provide us. So, hey, Mike, this has been a blast. It's gone fast. Our talks are always, we have so much to talk about in too short a period of time. So we'll have to do this again over the time. But you've been listening to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show. We've been talking with Mike Haberman from Omega HR Solutions. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Mike, for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure, Mike.
Okay.
Quite welcome, Keith. It was a pleasure meeting you as well.
Thanks.
And thanks again to all the listeners. We're always interested in hearing what's on your mind. Let us know how we're doing. We'll be excited to get the new website up. We'll have a big comment section there. You can let us, Keith or I, know on LinkedIn, Twitter, any of the other social media platforms. If you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor, just sharing a few thoughts, please let us know. You can also listen to the past shows at the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization.com. Thanks again to JobVite and Success Performance Solutions. Don't forget to join us next week, every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, W4CY.com, where you can catch us on any of your favorite podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Google Play, you name it, we're probably there. Until the next episode of Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization, this is Ira Wolf and Keith Campagna. Don't let the shift hit your plan.